I know people don't want to hear this video, but I think you should listen. So I've been hearing a lot of young people saying that HIV is on the rise, and a lot of people are new people who haven't had it are now getting infected with it. And what's sad is they're responding to dating ads, and they're going and visiting people, and the people, they already know, some of them know they have it, but they don't disclose their sexual history, and they knowingly infect other people. And so before I get into this article, I'm going to tell you something that I'm suspecting could be a possibility, and I'm not sure. It's just a hunch because of the behaviors that I've seen. So I did a video, this was some time ago, and the video was about veterans. Veterans, and I'm not saying all veterans, but most times, they go into the war, or they go over there, and whatever their experience, it must be really horrific. And a lot of them do come back with mental issues. And so I live in the city of Inglewood, and I'm not afraid to say that. But I noticed in the areas, certain areas, and I want to be more personal with these videos now, because I don't think I had really gotten into being more personal about my experiences and what I've witnessed and what I've actually experienced. And like I said, some of the things that I've been through, I could write books about it. But I'm giving you tidbits of some of the things that I've actually firsthand experienced. And so, the area where I live, I noticed there were a lot of residents that are U.S. veterans, and they served, or they are no longer serving anymore. Or maybe they're like reserve, or they served in the past, but when they came out, I saw a lot of behaviors that weren't normal. And so there's a woman that she lives around the corner. She comes outside and she stands sort of in the middle of the street, like she's holding up a post, like she's like standing at a post, like she's guarding something. And so I'm knowing it's a mental issue, and in her mind she thinks she's probably in the war, and she's probably was told to stand somewhere and keep watch of something, and she just never got out of her head. And so these are the things that some of these guys, they want to act macho, and they want to act like, you're threatening their manhood if you say that they can't handle war. But war is bad all around. It's not just only an issue of gender. It's an issue of human psyche, where if you see something horrific, whether you're a male or female, it's going to stick with you, and it's going to treat you in a way where you're going to have an aftermath effect of how it treats you. So I know this seems off topic, but I'm going to get to what we're getting to here. You see here it says hiv.gov. So it all connects. So I'm going to tell you this. So there's a lot of mental illness too with these people who come from out of the service, and they have anger issues, they have issues with socialization of people, and I've read a little more into it. They have issues when they're involved in relationships with people. So I had moved into a building, and the guy, I noticed, the behavior wasn't right. And so I noticed that he had what was a U.S. veteran hat. And then my son, he was working with one of the family members, and the family member disclosed that her cousin or family member had went into the service, and when he came back, he didn't come out the right way. He didn't come back the way he went in. And the behavior was evident because what I had witnessed is many prostitutes, many strippers, and he was entertaining, and they were entertaining him, and he was entertaining them. But what happened afterward was altogether not entertainment. It was fighting, arguing, bickering, and then all of the patterns that I noticed is every woman came back wanting revenge. And I said, well, if she's not pregnant, then why are they so angry and they want to hurt this man? They paid for the service, or either they knew he wasn't serious, or, and it was different with each one. So each woman, it was like some of them he had maybe finessed them and made them assume that they were going to be girlfriend, boyfriend, and it was a long-term relationship, and it never lasted. And then others, it was short-term and it didn't last, but it ended also with the same result, where each one came back wanting revenge. They wanted to hurt this man. And I said, I think something deeper is going on. It isn't a baby. It isn't because he cheated on them necessarily. Some of it was that. But outside of all that anger, I said, what would make a woman want to come back and kill a man? And so many of them wanted to do the same exact thing. And I said, it must be he's sick with something. And so what I noticed, that this person is withdrawn, they stay by themselves, and they had to have somebody with them. And I noticed a couple of times they had looked at me and they got angry with me because I wasn't doing the same things these other females were doing. And for one, I'm not a street person, where I'm hanging out, and I don't hang out at clubs, and I'm not no street walker, and I'm not a prostitute, and I'm not some loosey-goosey. And so I guess it offended him that I wasn't, anywhere in the realm of what these individuals he had been used to dealing with was. And the other issue is I'm a lot older, and so I've had a life way before, and I've had my own set of experiences, and I know this to be an older woman and wiser, that I'm not into messing around with people, especially if you don't disclose your sexual history, because I know goodness well that just like we have a past about just in general of what we were when we were kids, you have a sexual past, whether you had sex or not, or you were raped, or you don't engage in anything, or you want to say you don't engage in anything, it's still a sexual history. And so if you're not willing to disclose your personal life to a person you potentially want to lay with, then you are putting them in grave danger to catch a disease of any sorts. And it doesn't have to be necessarily HIV. It could be gonorrhea, it could be syphilis, it could be anything. It could also be hepatitis. That also is, there's some forms of that, I believe, that is sexually transmitted. So, somebody that doesn't have a lot of education in STDs, or they don't really pay close attention to the signs of somebody that could possibly put their life in jeopardy of getting infected. And a lot of times young people, they think with their body and not with their mind. And I'm not saying everybody is like this, but some are. They let the body get the best of them. Just because somebody looks good or they say the things you want to hear doesn't mean that it's safe to be with them. So I've been seeing a lot of the videos that have been posted by young folks on Tic Toc and all these social media sites and YouTube, warning people about the rise of HIV. So what I had witnessed is a lot of these women that were coming to visit this young man would come back wanting to kill this man. So to me, what that said is, it's not because he cheated only. He must have infected them with something. He gave the gift that keeps on giving, and it's a gift you don't want. So, for a lack of a better word, this gets into this article right here, and I'm just going to gloss over it. And I know you hear a dog in the background. That's my neighbors, because they have this dog and he constantly makes noise, and it's very rude and disrespectful, but we kind of deal with it, and I have to stress that. But anyway, to get back to the article, it says the statistics show fast facts. The information on the page refers to individuals ages 13 and older. So let me elaborate on that. Now, like I said, I live in LA, and I live in LA County is big, and Inglewood is part of LA County. So what I noticed that I witnessed is that this man was picking up prostitutes, and he picked up this one young girl, and I know she was middle school age, but she was on the street, and he was having sex with her, and he had a girlfriend on top of it, and the girlfriend came and caught him with the girl and demanded that he come out the house. He wouldn't come out the house, so she threw rocks at the window. Now, this happened on multiple occasions where I reside, and so later I did not see the woman come back. The woman he had previous was living with him, and she left in a frenzy, angry, and she had her girlfriend to come pick her up, and whatever he must have did to her, it was so bad that I had never seen that lady come back again. Another woman came up there. She beat on the door until probably I say an hour, demanding he come out. There had been other incidences where people had wanted to hurt this man. So the only thing I could come up with, if it wasn't a baby and it wasn't just the cheating, that maybe this man had probably been infected with something. And I'm thinking the only thing, if it isn't something you can't get a shot for or take medicine, it must be HIV. So I've been seeing a lot of these videos on TikTok from these young people talking about the rise of HIV. Let me elaborate a little more. We're under the Trump administration currently, and what I did read is that he stopped the research funding for the cure, so that you all don't have to take the medicine. There was a group that was really close to finding a cure to this disease. But now, because of this administration, that has all come to a halt. And I don't think it's going to happen anytime soon where they're going to restart it. Hopefully they do. But I don't see it happening, not under this administration, because it's considered wasteful spending thanks to Elon and all of the Doge people and whatnot. So they got rid of that research funding for that disease. So where does it stand with you? Young people, use protection. Don't listen to people that tell you it's okay to sleep with them. Don't sleep with people you don't know their sexual history if they can't produce a test showing you that they are negative. And I'm not talking about something they done concocted on Canva and CapCut and all these places. I done made a phony document saying they're disease free. You want to go to the doctor with them and see that that test is negative. Yes, HIV is on the rise. I one that lived through the time when they didn't have any medicine. And I saw what it did to a lot of people. They dropped like flies. I worked as a nurse in a 6-month or less to live hospice and saw how that disease just ravaged communities, especially low income and people of color. So if you think that it's safe to go out there and do this, and I know you want to laugh at how I'm going to say this, the huckabuck and jumping in and out of haystacks, don't do it. Because you might get infected with something that you can't get rid of. So, this says approximately 1.2 million people in the U.S. have HIV. About 13% of them don't know it and need testing. HIV continues to have a disproportionate impact on certain populations, particularly racial and ethnic minorities, gay, bisexual, and other men who have sex with men. And in 2022, an estimated 31,800 people acquired HIV in the U.S. This was in 2022. So now the numbers have grown. So an estimated new HIV infections decreased. That was around 12%, 36,300 in 2018 or 2018, and 31,800 in 2022. So in 2022, 37,981 people aged 13 and older received an HIV. 13-year-olds getting an HIV diagnosis in the U.S. This was in 2022. And 6 territories and freely associated states, HIV diagnoses are not evenly distributed across states and regions. The highest rates of new diagnoses, they continue to occur in the South. And so new HIV infection, HIV incidences, refers to an estimated number of HIV infections during a specific period, such as a year, which is different from the number of people diagnosed with HIV during a given year. So some people may have HIV for some time but not know it. So the year they are diagnosed may not be the same as the year they have acquired HIV. So it says, according to the latest estimates, the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, CDC, approximately 31,800 people acquired HIV in the U.S. in 2022. So annual infections in the U.S. have been reduced by more than 2/3 since the height of the epidemic in the mid-1980s. So it reduced, and I attributed that to the people who back in the time before were still working on trying to find a cure, and they worked on a medicine called PrEP. So it talks about a medicine which is a pre-exposure prophylactics called PrEP, prescription viral suppression. So what it does is I guess if you're somebody that isn't infected with HIV, if you are in contact with somebody, it might help to shield you from somebody that does have it. So it creates some kind of, I guess, barrier to keep you from getting infected. And so they have a lot of the new medicines out. And so Also, I've been seeing young people saying that they are normalizing HIV on, videos showing people who look healthy and say they healthy and they in healthy relationships even though they're infected. And I hate to say this, let me drag this a little more into it. Some people knowingly get infected because they figured that they're going to receive benefits. Now, these were homeless people, and I was hearing it was happening somewhere in the ATO, which is Atlanta, where people who were homeless said that they were tired of, some certain people didn't want to be homeless no more, so they were getting infected because they said when you get infected with HIV you receive a lot of benefits, and when they weren't infected they wasn't getting the help they need being a homeless person in Atlanta. But once you had gotten infected you started to receive all these benefits. Now that's crazy. Don't it sound like that? That's crazy. But that's what I was hearing. I was reading all of this stuff and I'm like, people sometimes will do whatever they gotta do if they figure that they're struggling and they're on the street and they don't have nothing. But I don't think I would want to do something like that even if I was struggling. And I'm just telling you how I feel right there. But yeah, so this is just giving you a tidbit of what I've seen right here. I've been looking at the videos, I've been looking at the stories, and I've been staying on top of what's going on in the world with the young folks. And I don't get out and go to clubs and hang out like I used to when I was younger. When you're younger, you do a lot more, you're more extrovert, and you're still learning your identity of where you fit in. But when you get older and you've had a set of experiences, you learn to stay in your lane if you mature. Of course, some people don't mature, and we got older people that still don't know how to stay in their lane. But what I'm saying to you is be careful out there. As a young person and an old person, don't just feel like you gotta be with somebody to validate yourself to say I'm with somebody, because you might get with somebody but that might not be what you thinking. It might be somebody that might be infected, or maybe they don't, like they said, some people don't even know they have it. Now that's not everybody. The stories I've been hearing is people, they know their status but they're willingly passing this disease along, because I feel like it's a little ugly movement, and I'm gonna say it like that, is that they try to normalize the disease to make people think it's okay to have it, and if more people get it then they don't feel alienated because they have it. Now let me let you on to something. There are other diseases out there that are long term. They may not be HIV, but you can have those as well, and people have felt alienated, like herpes. And we don't really hear them doing too much research on that as much. They just tell you got to deal with it. It's a virus, I mean, it's not HIV. You can still have children and relationships, but a lot of times you get ostracized when you have things like that. So there are other diseases, even other than herpes. There's venereal warts. I just don't think that people have had enough training about what's going on out there in the world in terms of your sexual. There is a such thing called sexual health. And sexual history. So if you don't get the training and all of that, and you don't read about it and take it serious, you're going to come up on something you probably are not prepared to deal with. And it could be devastating, or it could change your life forever. So take it from me. I'm just trying to tell y'all young people, you got to be careful who you messing around with out there. I know you like to, you got all these, I've seen older people, I don't want to be an old man, I want to be by myself and all this kind of stuff, but you don't hear them making sense of what's happening in the world. The Trump administration has stopped the research funding to HIV. If you get with something that you can't cure and you gotta take medicine, you don't know if your insurance gonna cover it. And because one person can live with something, you might discover you got an autoimmune disease and other issues that might, once if you get this disease, you might not be able to live with it whether you got the medicine or not, because everybody's body is not the same. So that's another thing that people need to consider. I'm not trying to make people antisocial, I'm just trying to make you aware. So anyway, well, on that note, I'm going to let this video go. I didn't really go down the line, but here, if you look at it, 13 years olds progress in HIV prevention continues with overall 12% decline in estimated. That's what they said, but this was in 2018 and 2022. So I think now we're in 2020, we're in 2025. So that has changed. That has changed. So this is probably the most up-to-date thing that I can find. And it has more in here. But this was back then. Notice it was back then. So like I said, he had stopped the research funding. So what I'm seeing on TikTok says that in Texas and Houston, a lot of people, there was like 20,000 people, over 20,000 that had gotten infected in 1 year. And that was like, I think, fairly recent. New cases of HIV. And here, reason why I'm showing you this is starting from age 13, some people had got infected. And so more and more people are getting sick. And some people are normalizing it. Some people think that this is a game, but it is not a game. When people get this stuff, there's no going back. Your life is forever changed. When you get this, you got to consider your kids, if you can even have kids, should you even have a family. You got to consider the person that you're with. If you cheated, are you going to bring it back to your spouse? Or if you were in a relationship and the person was supposed to be faithful, who were they with? There's a lot of variables, to consider. So if you don't think about all these things, I don't know what else there is, but this is pretty serious. And I think people don't think about these things. They just work on emotion and not using their brain and thinking, how is this one night stand going to treat me? Am I going to regret this or what? And if you got an inkling of a gut feeling that this is not a good situation, hooking up with that individual, then follow it. Follow that gut feeling, because it's probably something trying to protect you from making a bad decision. Because one night of what you think is some kind of passionate relationship, and now you got a whole life of misery and anguish and regret that, wow, I made one bad decision and now I gotta live with this for the rest of my entire life, or I may not be able to live because I'm so sick because the person infected me, and I had an autoimmune disease I didn't even know about until I got infected, and now my life is in jeopardy. Do you want to make those type of choices? And I don't think a normal person that really cares about themselves would electively say, I want to catch a disease that could end my life. Right? So I'm going to leave you on that note. So what do you think? Should you make those risky decisions? And I know some people who already are infected are probably saying, I'm living healthy, I'm doing well, it's no sweat off my brow, I made a bad choice and now I'm taking the medicine. Well, everybody ain't you. Everybody's body ain't like yours. So what you might can tolerate, somebody else might not can do that. So some people can be very selfish. So you got to think about your health and your well-being, and you got to put yourself first before even your emotions. What's good for your body and what's good for you, not what you want at the moment, but think about the longevity impact of what this decision will do in the end. That's all I'm saying.